Welcome everyone to another episode of Live with Index. We are in partnership, of course, with our friends over at the Africa Travel Association with the Exchange. And today we are going to be talking about Stellenbosch, beyond the Vineyards. So I've got three fantastic guests with me today going around my screen. We've got Lauren Berry, who is the marketing manager at Landrack in Stellenbosch. Piet Van Retief, who is an amazing historian and tour guide for Stellenbosch.
Thank you.
And Elmarie Rabi, who is the manager of Visit Stellenbosch.
Hey.
So for any of you who have been to Stellenbosch, you may know, or you should know, that it is one of the top wine regions, not only in all of Africa, but of course in South Africa. Landrack is one of our partners that is based in Stellenbosch and is one of the oldest wine estates in the area. I don't want to get into too much because I've got my three amazing guests with me. So we're going to jump pretty much straight into the talk. But first and foremost, I know some people, we've been getting emails from folks asking what is the situation right now in South Africa with COVID and with what phase are you guys at right now? So Lauren, I pose that to you.
Yeah, so we've actually, from our side, from Landrack's side, we reopened our spa on Monday. So very excited about that. We'd also reopened our deli for takeaways and deliveries. And basically, from tomorrow, we'll decide from the hotel's aspect when we're going to reopen. But yeah, things are looking more positive. And yeah, that's basically from the Landrack side.
No, perfect. And of course, for anyone who's watching, please, if you have any questions for any four of us, please do make sure to put them into the Q&A panel or into the chat box. We will be answering those as we go through, and of course at the end of this conversation as well. So let's talk about wine now. Enough about the COVID stuff. I know that's the depressing stuff. We have to get through it. But now, of course, I want to start with Lauren. Going back to you, Lauren, can you just give, for those who don't know about Landrack, I know some of you have been on this call, but for those of you who don't know, give us a little background and history about the hotel and the estate.
Okay, I'm going to try and go through it quickly. So we're 328 years old this year. The estate was founded in 1692 by Isaac Schrijver. He was a sergeant for the Dutch East India Company, and the land was granted to him by Simon van der Stel. At the time, it was Landrack and Mosterdstrift that he was granted, and he named it Skoongezicht, which meant wonderful view. And it's actually known that his wife, Anna Hooks, was the lady who oversaw all the farming and the managing of the farm. And then by the 1700s, he was farming cattle, sheep, corn, rye, and then the vineyards that we know today. And then in 1712, Isaac Schrijver unfortunately passed away, and he handed the land over to his wife, Anna Hooks. It actually took her 2 years to procure all of the farms within the Jonkershoek Valley. And then while she was running the farm, she actually did incredibly well, and she doubled the vineyards and the cattle in that space of time. And then in 1719, she gave the land over to her daughter when she had passed. Her name was Marie van Koningshoven, and she had the estate till 1755. It was in 1740 that they started to build the actual buildings that we see today. So they started to build the distillery and the cellar. And then in 1755, Maria gave it to her daughter, Anna Hassler. And Anna Hassler started to sell off the farms that they'd procured over the years, and she only kept Skoongezicht, Mosterdstrift, and Klein Gestro. And she was actually the best farmer out of all of the ladies. And by the 1790, by 1790, the livestock in the vineyards were flourishing, and it was amazing. So basically, for the first 100 years, the farm was run, or 100 plus years, the farm was run by women, which was very pioneering for that time and very unique. And then in 1808, that family sold Skoongezicht off. So that ended the family bloodline of 126 years. And it went into 4 different owners from 1808 to 1920. The individual who did the most change on the estate in 1930 was Conrad Fick. And he ended up building the manor house with the iconic white gable. And then after, the next most influential owner after him was Elizabeth Catherine. Elizabeth Catherine was born in West Somerset in South Africa. She met and fell in love and married a diamond merchant. His name was Frederick Alexander English, and then she decided to move with him to the UK, where they lived very happily until 1909, when he passed away. And he unfortunately didn't leave it in his will for her to be able to have the estate. So by 1914, she handed the estate over to a board of trustees, and they actually donated it as a hospital for World War I. And in 1914, she decided that she was going to come back to South Africa and pursue her passion for farming. She grew up farming and she loved it. So she arrived back in SA in 1914, and she ended up purchasing Skoongezicht in 1920 for £18,000. She was a formidable woman. She was a hard worker. She didn't take any nonsense. And she became a very well-known woman farmer. And for that era, it was also very unheard of. And yeah, she ended up also upgrading the manor house. She used the famous architects Baker, Kendall, and Morris to redo the manor house. And she had the property for 9 years. So she was the one who actually changed the estate from Skoongezicht to Landrack. And we believe that it could possibly be after General Landrack, who was a general in World War I. He led the troops in France. And we've actually got her auction book from when she passed. And all of her furniture in there was dated and bought in Paris. So she could have possibly have met General Landrack while she was in France at the same time. And they could have possibly had a love affair, which is where Landrack comes from. But I met a journalist in December, a French journalist, and he told me about the grape Landrack in France. So it could be the passion of General Landrack or passion of the vineyards. We're not 100% sure. But yeah, when she passed away, she left it in her 5 nephews' name. And unfortunately, they couldn't look after the estate. So then it was auctioned off. And one of her previous builders bought the estate. And then you get to the Buchanan family. So James Buchanan and his family lived in Scotland. And in 1889, they decided to sail from Scotland. They were confectionery producers. They decided to sail from Scotland to Rhodesia, which is now Zimbabwe. And then at a later stage, they got on an ox wagon and they traveled from Rhodesia all the way to Woodstock, in Cape Town, where they started their confectionery stores and manufacturing sweets. And they became one of the largest ones in the Cape and I believe South Africa. And then in 1942, James Buchanan bought Angus Buchanan, his son, a wedding gift, which was Landrack. So, yeah,
gift.
so then he decided to leave. Yeah, very nice wedding present. So he decided to leave confectionery and go and just focus completely in winemaking. And he was actually a really good winemaker. He is the one that basically got the Landrack wines on the map. And he also won 9 consecutive awards through, consecutive awards over 9 years. And he also sold a piece of Landrack off to the municipality, which he named, they had to name it Corindal after his daughter Corin. And then in 1958, Angus sold the Landrack to David Rawdon, who was a family friend. And David Rawdon was a hotelier who had started up the Rawdon Hotel in Natal. He'd built it from scratch with his family. And then also at a later stage, the Marine Hotel in Hermanus, as well as the Cape Milner in Mikey'sfontein. So he loved decor, furnishings, and he, as well as food. And he ended up transforming all of the cow sheds and the chicken pens and the barns into luxurious bedrooms. And then he also converted the distillery and the cellar into the lounge, as we know it, and well, the lounge and the kitchen and the dining area and the pubs. And then in 1975, Landrack actually won the best, one of the top 300 hotels in the world. He was a very loved man. The staff loved him. He's very well spoken about. I think Pittman met him. And yeah, he was a great hotelier. And he sold the property after 30 years. And then in 1991, it was bought by a South African businessman, Christo Visser. And then in 2012, we are now part of a British consortium. And in 2017, we had the fire, which I think most people know about. And we had Con van der Kolk, who redid all of the renovations on the estate, and we reopened in 2018. So that's where we are today. I tried to get that in as quickly as possible.
That's more than 300 years in 10 minutes. It's pretty damn good. And for those of you who don't know, when Landrack had the fire, they did have to do a massive refurb, which is now the hotel that so many people have loved to come and see since 2018. It looks absolutely fabulous. So going back to the history, Pietman, this is to you. How did Stellenbosch actually originally become a wine outpost, or an outpost for wine?
Well, Lauren was this is very interesting what Lauren told us now, but there are just a few things that I can fill in, and I think this is important just to take 2 or 3 steps back, because to a large extent the basic the history, the European involvement in South Africa to a large extent is similar to the European involvement in the eastern side of the States today, New York, New Amsterdam, it used to be called at some stage. And the Dutch certainly played a major role. Interestingly enough, the Dutch are not really known for their wine production, but they were certainly involved in some developments. The Dutch East Indies Company used to travel from Amsterdam down around the southern point of Africa to Malaysia and India and Indonesia to do business, and it took them about 3 to 5 months to get from Amsterdam to the Cape. You can just imagine. We're talking about the 1600s. Those little ships, the guys had to sit on that ship for 3 to 5 months, depending on the weather, climate, winds, and so on. Obviously, from the Cape. 3 to 5 months to get to where they wanted to be, Indonesia. So it was a rather, it could have been, people died. People died, but yeah, on these ships because of scurvy, because of problems with what they ate. But now, obviously, for that reason, they had to stop somewhere along the coast of Africa, and they decided Cape Town, Table Mountain. There were fresh water. There were animals. There was meat. There was very little else, but it was there. So so they decided to make it the halfway house, the refreshment station, so to say, for the ships. And this is where we come in now, where we're getting closer to Skoongezicht, Landrack. There were the indigenous people, the Khoisan people were here. They were herders and hunters, so they ate a lot of meat. What did they eat to supplement the meat? They used the trees and the plants and so on, which they know. And a lot of research has recently, over the last 30 years, been done on what the Bushmen ate and how they fed themselves. Okay, that couldn't be supplied to the ships because the Europeans didn't know that well enough. So this is now important. They had to develop farms where the European stuff could be produced. And the European stuff, vegetables, fruit, and wine. Now, the interesting thing here is, why did the Dutch, why were they so keen to produce wine in the Cape? And, you know, the governor, they settled in the Cape in 1652. On the 2nd of February 1659, the governor wrote in his diary, "Vandag gode sy lof," in Dutch, of course, meaning, "Today, thank the Lord, wine was made of Cape grapes for the first time." 1659. The wine industry calls South Africa a new wine world country. You see, we've been at it for quite a while. Long before Peru and Chile and Constantia, obviously, long before they got away. So, okay, we started now. The one interesting thing is, and I want to get to Skoongezicht, the very Dutch name. The Dutch East India authorities in the Cape. Let's talk about the company authority in the Cape itself. Identified certain farms and they allocated it to certain members of the staff of the company in the Cape. Now these guys, this was new. There was nothing. There's no brick and mortar houses. There were huts, yes, and they had tents, I believe. But that was it. So they had to start from scratch. Now what impressed me and impressed, I think, many people after that was the passion with which they named this farm that was allocated to them. And if I mention this to English-speaking people or people from America, they are astounded. I mean, how can they order a bottle of buitenverwachting? There is no ways that. Buitenverwachting simply means beyond expectation. Niet voorbij. Meaning, don't pass me by. Come in and have a glass of wine. Welgevallen, well situated. Those were names of wine farms. Now we, in Afrikaans, we don't talk like that anymore. It's High Dutch from the 16th, 1700s, I suppose. But those names are kept alive. How? By appearing on wine bottles. Mm-hmm. That is fantastic. And that is why Skoongezicht, and Lauren is right, it means beautiful view. Literally translated, it would mean clean face. But in Old Dutch, it was it referred to the visual. Okay, so that is how they established the principle of allocating farms. Wheat, of course, was the other product that had to be produced. For bread, simply 3 months, 5 months on a ship, and not a slice of bread. I mean, this is this is ridiculous. And the guys were busy, so they they had to produce. The French, the English were already on the sea route as well, and the French were here, and obviously the Dutch. On one specific day in 1743, I think it was, 17 ships got shipwrecked in Table Bay because of this fierce storm that we had. I'm saying this to you just to indicate how busy this route around the Cape was at that time. So they couldn't, the farms around Table Mountain couldn't produce enough to serve the ships. What did they do? They moved out into the hinterland. And I think I'm carrying on too long. You must stop me if you want to ask the next question. Let's give it a break if you like, because I want to get to Stellenbosch and Landrack.
Okay, well, yeah, that leads me to my next question then of the founding of Stellenbosch. Of course, as you mentioned, the indigenous tribes of the Hottentots and the Khoisan were already there, but who founded Stellenbosch as the town that we now know today?
Yes, it's obviously it's the second oldest settlement in the Cape. Now, the farms around Table Mountain couldn't produce enough. They had to move out. Now, a man by the name of Simon van der Stel got the appointment as the governor that had to manage the Cape. Interesting fellow. He shortly after he arrived here, he went on to a research trip into the hinterland, 50 kilometers away. Let's make it 30 miles from the American people, about 30 miles away from the Cape settlement. He woke up one morning as they slept along a river on the 8th of November, and this is important, 1679, woke up one morning and he just found that this area, and he wrote about this in his diary, he said, this is such beautiful area. The trees with the river, the forest around him and so on. Wild animals, lions, elephants, everything, leopards. We've still got leopards up here. And so he woke up that morning and decided this is so beautiful, that this is where he wants to establish a little village and farms. And he called it, he said, okay, this area then is Van der Stelse Bos. Now that is in Dutch, a bosch in Dutch is a forest, amongst the trees. Van der Stels Forest it was. Stellenbosch came from there. So he was, Simon van der Stel was the founder of Stellenbosch. We honor him in that way. He was a good manager. He served the company well for about 20 years or so. The interesting thing here, Washa, is again, this man as a Dutchman promoted this whole idea of winemaking and the importance of wine very passionately. And I've often thought about this. Why wine in the Cape produced by Dutchmen? And the only answer I can get is that the guys with all the scurvy, stomach problems they had on the ships and so on, realized the value of alcohol in medicine. And but Simon was definitely very motivated as well, in such a way that he brought in oak trees. It's not indigenous. The oaks that you see here in their millions were brought in from France. And it's mostly Dutch oak. And why? Because he realized that they would eventually need oak casks. And he wanted to create an oak industry in the Cape. Rather interesting. Simon was very enterprising. He never saw the oak because our oaks grow too fast and they're too porous and they're not good for. So we can't use our own oak for oak casks. Anyway, that's how it all started. Okay. And that now with the naming of the farms, Skoongezicht. That is why the name was there. It is, in fact, and I want to talk about that later on, it is, in fact, a very beautiful view that you can get from this estate.
And of course, that actually leads me to my next question, which is, what has been Landrack's contribution and and preservation to the history and the culture of the Stellenbosch area, over the past, and obviously, going through apartheid and to now?
Oh yeah, have you got another 2 hours?
Yeah, I guess that's a very long-winded question. I guess a long answer.
No, but okay, the establishing of a heritage in the Cape. We believe that the Cape has got a very special heritage and a culture down here. The rest of the country developed in later years, but very important. Now, your friends in New York can now see behind you, there's a very beautiful building. And there you are. Look at the gable. The Cape Dutch style of architecture developed here from the middle 1700s through to the early 1700s, basically early 1800s to deal with. We've got in South Africa, we've got 76 of these buildings still in good shape and well looked after. Now, this one is one of the most beautiful examples of a Cape Dutch homestead. You can see a bit of Dutch. Yeah. You can see Amsterdam's gable. Mm-hmm. You can see the one single door, normally a double door, a stable door. The bottom one closed to keep the animals up, and the top one open to bring the light in, at least. So that is certainly one of Landrack's contributions. So the other part is Landrack has always, since I got to know it in the 1960s already as a student, David Orden's period, has always been a good example of stylish living in those days. So the association with wine is a very positive association. Wine and good living. Wine, quality, and the quality of a lifestyle, and so on. So, over the years, we got used to the old style of furniture in the homes, old style of your dining room equipment, the glasses, and so on. That has been a very serious contribution that Landrack has made to the culture in the Cape over a long period of time.
Amazing.
I'll get back to Stellenbosch. That's something different.
Yeah. Now, I've got a very important question. Of course, this goes out to all three of you. Now, I asked you this before because I wanted you to think about it. And this, of course, is for all of you watching. For each of you, other than Landrack, what are your two other favorite wines or wine estates to go to? And I'll pose that to, Pittman, you can go first with that one.
Okay, Landrack certainly, yes, without any doubt. I've been very fortunate having been associated with Landrack over a long period of time. In this instance now, I know the winemaker quite well. I was very friendly with his parents and so on. So, I've got reason to like the whole setup and what is presented here. And then, insofar as red wines go, and that is Stellenbosch, the second one would be Kanonkop, which is very well known in the States as well. And then there's a third one, I would say, if you talk about red wine, Meerlust. But there are so many, Russia. It's a very unfair question. But those would be, I suppose, my top three.
Okay. Marie, do you want to go next?
Help me.
Yes, so I am also the custodian of the Stellenbosch wine routes or wine region. So I always say, what's your favorite child? And it's impossible to choose which one of your children are your favorite. And certainly I think I'll be crucified if I say it out loud. But I think definitely Landrack. I mean, I love the people, and that's always part of the whole experience, or how you become to love and enjoy a brand, it's always a whole package. It's the people that's there. It's the beautiful views. It's how you feel when you go there. It's the serenity and the birds chirping in the trees. It's everything. But definitely for me, Landrack, the Pinotage is amazing. I love the Chardonnay. I love the MCC. And the people. And other than that, I am going to, what did you say in the States? I plead the Fifth Amendment.
You're going to plead the Fifth.
I plead the Fifth.
That is fair. That is very fair. I'm sure you've got many of your friends watching to see what you were going to say. And before we come back to you, though, Lauren, of course, we had to have you answer that too.
Yeah.
You do have some allegiances, but still.
I think we're so fortunate just to be able to go on weekends and try different wine estates. There's so many, so I know that I haven't been to everyone, but one of my favorites is Jordan Wine Estate. It's beautiful, Stellenbosch, in the Stellenbosch area, and it's so peaceful. Words can't describe how beautiful it is. We recommend guests to go there for lunch or wine tastings as well. Lovely food. And then also another I find very beautiful is Dale, which is just up the road from us, which we also recommend to guests to go and try. The artwork there is amazing. And then just on the other side of Stellenbosch Mountain, I really like Noble Hill. That is just very relaxed, and it's a very local, casual spot to go eat Mexican and drink wine.
There's so many options.
Those are my favorites.
It'll take forever to get through them all. Now, Elmary, coming back to you, tell us, for those who don't know, and of course for those who do know but haven't done enough of it yet, explain the importance of the wine route and how it was discovered.
So obviously South Africa has been making wine for a long, long time. Nothing was organized into routes or regions. And obviously in the years of apartheid, we were very much cut off from the rest of the world in terms of exports, but also bringing in rootstock, learning about ways or better ways that wine was made, having access to the information, knowledge, and grapes. So as I said, we were very much cut off from that. But then in the late 1960s, we had 3 gentlemen here from the Stellenbosch wine producing area who started challenging the government in terms of the way we did business, because everything in those years had to go to one big cooperative that was called the KWV. They essentially regulated and controlled everything. They regulated and controlled the flow of wine, grapes, production, the whole, everything. We couldn't offer wine tastings from the farms directly. They only had one, they only served one co-op, and that was KWV. So these farmers started challenging the government, and they eventually got it right by sheer determination, and persuaded the government that a handful of farms can now produce their own wine under their own labels. So that was the one thing, they could use their grapes for their own thing. And then in 1971, they also got it managed to persuade the government to let them offer tastings from the cellars. So, and that is where everything then started. So in 1971, the Stellenbosch Wine Route was founded by 3 properties, and that was Jallan, Spatsperling, Simon Sich, and that has also got something to do with a view on the Simonsberg Mountain, which is related to Simon van der Stel. So he's really deeply entrenched in our history and all our landmarks. So Simon Sich was the other one, Frans Milan, and then Speer. Neil, got my surname. Yes, Neil Hubert. Yeah. So the 3 of them then sort of forced the government, it was by brute force and determination and tenacity, to open up. They could, and that's where wine tasting and wine tasting rooms, cellar doors started. They then managed to develop a route around it. In the beginning, I think there were 8 wine farms. That's where we started, with 8. The next thing was that they challenged was the signage. And then for the first time, you can actually put a signage board next to the side of the road to say, this way for a wine tasting, with the name of the farm. So that was all sort of in the 70s. And that today we say is the start of wine tourism in South Africa. Stellenbosch is also the biggest wine area, and it's today one of the biggest developed wine areas in South Africa. It's the biggest route with the most members. We can be compared to Napa or Bordeaux, obviously not in size, but that's the kind of thing. It's the landmark wine route, the landmark wine area for Stellenbosch. Yes, and today we give a lot of people work. There's a lot of economic opportunities around the wine route, and obviously, so it just plays a big role in an agri-centered province.
Absolutely. And of course, you've got other towns like Franschhoek and Paarl around you, and of course many others. What really sets Stellenbosch apart from those towns? Of course, you've got the university and there's a lot of other things, but what really makes you guys stand out?
Yeah, so I would like to think, obviously we've got the university here. It's one of the best universities in the world. We are also, it's the only university in South Africa or Africa, I'm not sure, that actually offers a agricultural degree or enology winemaking courses. So all winemakers come from Stellenbosch because this is the only place where you can study for winemaking. But I would like to think that Stellenbosch, obviously we've got the really vibrant atmosphere here. Being in a student town just brings something amazing in terms of atmosphere. Yes, you walk through these really old, with the historical center of Stellenbosch, you see these really old buildings, but at the same time, there's this really young, vibrant atmosphere, street side dining, cafes sort of spilling onto the pavements, young and old, everybody mixing together. So that is really nice. And then obviously we've got a really fantastic eclectic offering. So we've got about 150 cellar doors, so winemaking experience. It will take you about a year to get through everything in total. We've got some really amazing dining opportunities, some of the best chef in South Africa, according to, well, we've got one major competition here, and the best chef is from Stellenbosch. We've had best restaurants, there's amazing outdoors, art. Obviously the wine is something, we've got great accommodation. So it's really a fantastic offering, and we've got everything. It's not just outdoor, or not just this, or not just that. We've got really the whole package, and we are very close to the airport and close to Cape Town. And from here, as Stellenbosch as your hub, you can very easily do trips, like for example to Franschhoek to see what it's like, or to Paarl, or even Cape Town.
Yeah.
And just get the country feeling, but vibrant and eclectic and magical.
And as Visit Stellenbosch, how are you guys actively contributing, to the community and exposing, all the vibrancy and diversity of the community to the world?
So it is our number one goal is to unlock those opportunities, to really go out and make a proactive effort to bring economic sustainability, I suppose you can call it, to some communities, to develop products with community members, and to really mine all those really nuggets, those wonderful stories. And so there are already existing products like township tours, etc. But now we have an opportunity, especially since Visit Stellenbosch was founded. So we're really going out and making sure that we train new tour guides, we develop new products. So one of the things we're doing now, it's called the Vlakte Tour, and that was where a large component of the colored community was forcibly removed from what now is the center of town, and they were moved somewhere else in the apartheid years. So obviously, so now we've got these amazing tours and products that's come from it, and people telling their stories and sharing their memories from growing up in that area. But it's not something that we can also share with the rest of the world. And yes, it's sad and it's sore, but there's some really amazing stories there. And establishing little tea gardens where you can eat traditional food, where you can learn about spices. And obviously that came in from the Indonesians and the Malay people that was brought to South Africa as slaves. But we are now sharing their cultures and their history and packaging tours around that to make sure that, number one, we can help them and their families. We grow those products that we can share with the world, and really actively going out and finding ways to create jobs and obviously the more people that visit Stellenbosch, that also is part of this whole job creation and economic growth of our town and of our region. So every day is something.
And Lauren, same question to you. You know, what has Landrack done? I mean, you've got such an amazing, vibrant, and diverse, and young staff too that just are so fantastic. What has Landrack been doing to work with the community and empower not only your staff but the community around you, and show that?
Yeah, so I mean, basically, we concentrate very much on our staff, on training our staff, putting them on courses. So they, you know, if they're in the F&B side, we send them off to courses on how to better with the service. Or if they have interest in wine, we send them off to sommelier courses. And then also just on the viticulture side, to, you know, just when it comes to harvesting, we bring in a lot of women, especially over that time, just to help with the community. Yeah, and that's how we are covering.
Great. And Pittman, of course, you are the man with the plan. You've got all the history and all the knowledge of the area. You've obviously got so many, you've done, I'm sure, thousands of different tours for your clients who've come to the area. How are you bringing all of these different stories to life? Because again, it's hundreds of years. How do you bring all these stories to life, especially for, say, you know, the American traveler or North American traveler that doesn't really know a lot about this history and the communities?
I want to start here by saying that tourism is, of course, the lifeline of the Western Cape. Tourism and the wine industry contributes largely to the promotion of tourism, obviously. But tourism is extremely important. Lauren has now touched on it. People to develop work for people is extremely important. And therefore, this virus that gave us all these problems was a very serious stumble block in our setup. The contribution of Stellenbosch towards, you know, I believe Stellenbosch, the vibrancy. This we already mentioned this as well. In this town is really fantastic. But if you don't mind, Barsha, I just want to come back and add to what Lauren has said. And that is the position of Landrack, the whole setup of Landrack in this fantastic community that we have in and around Stellenbosch. And that is Salmon from the Still. His attitude towards Landrack was, while he gave it to some of his very likable colleagues, at the very beginning of the very beautiful, the most beautiful valley, and certainly South Africa, if not the whole of Africa. This valley beyond Landrack. As you go, in fact, the road runs across the land of which used to be part of the Landrack thing. It is beautiful. It's a matter of about 25 kilometers up. Cycling tracks, running, hiking. is absolutely ideal for tourism to support the wine route here to markets. And what is more, over and above that, and it's very safe and it's very nice. And I mean, you know, you still get your groups of baboons in the mountain kind of thing. And you get, and now, in fact, the beginning of winter is the protea time, the beautiful flower. More than 100 of them actually flower. And now this, the beginning of winter, they start coming out again. It is so pretty. But then, this very Landrack that runs into this valley, if you go the other direction, you walk towards, I would say, the most historic image that is being portrayed by Stellenbosch. So if you walk, it's about a 20 to 30 minute walk from Landrack to the center, the historical center of Stellenbosch. And you walk past, and it's very safe as well, you walk past a nature reserve, you walk past a botanical garden that has got contacts with botanical gardens all over the world. So it's rather magic. And obviously then all these old Victorian houses, Cape Dutch houses. So it's walking distance from from Landrack, and that makes it very, very special setup.
Fantastic. So, you know, of course, I've always got my friends asking me, how can I get this amazing Landrack wine over here in the States? And Lauren, tell us a little bit about when we have clients come in. Actually, I just had one of our friends saying that she was able to pack 6 bottles in her suitcase. So very happy for you. You've got obviously a lot of guests that come to the property, and you know they have an amazing time, whether they're staying overnight or they're at the property just, you know, for the day to taste out the wine. How are they learning the history of the wine and also getting it back to their house? More importantly, getting it back to their house in the States.
Yeah. Well, for our guests at the estate, we obviously offer the wine tasting. So we offer the premium tasting, the heritage tasting, and then also the wine and chocolate pairing. And the premium tasting is included in your rate if you are staying at the hotel. We also have a complimentary cellar tour, which happens at 11 o'clock every day. So we encourage our guests to experience how and go down into the cellar, learn how the wine is made. But then anybody who is in the wine tasting area around that time can go and do the cellar tour. And then, our wine ambassadors have a world of knowledge when it comes to doing the tastings with guests. And then we are able to courier wine to the States. So if the guest wants to place an order there at the wine tasting bar area, or when they're about to leave, we can arrange that they order it from the wine tasting, and then we will have it couriered over to where they live in the States. But if you are in America and you want to order from home, then Cape Order is our distributors. So if you just go to their website, then you'll be able to order whichever Landrack wines you want there, and then they'll make sure that it's couriered to your door.
Amazing. There's so much more I want to talk about, but you know, we don't have enough time for me to keep on jabbering. But with that, I want to open it up to any of our guests that we have here. If you have any questions for Elmarie, Lauren, and Pietman, please do type them into the chat box or into the Q&A. So we'll give you a few seconds for that. In the meantime, you know, I want to bring this all together, and the reason we have this talk is to really bring together the ideas of, you know, Stellenbosch is not just an area for wine. It has so much beauty and diversity and culture and history, and of course, beautiful luxurious properties. So, you know, a lot of folks, while is it possible, real quick, is it possible to ship to Canada? And the answer to that, Jody, is yes, they can ship to Canada as well. And I will also send you the Cape Order link. you know, there is so much beauty to see in the Stellenbosch area, and it should not be done in a day or even 2 days. Take your time to take in this area and learn about the communities that are there now and the people that have been there over the past hundreds of years. And there's so much. So, so with that said, unless there's any other questions, I'll let each of you give us one of your favorite tips. How about that? Let's give one last favorite tip from each of you about one reason why you love and why people should come to Stellenbosch. You get one. I know, that's hard. Maybe we'll start with you.
Okay, well, I want to say the lifestyle. The lifestyle is it's magical. So I think maybe I crooked a little bit or I cheated a little bit, because lifestyle is a very big concept, but it's magical. It's this wine, food, amazing atmosphere, and definitely that needs a bit of time to experience and drink in everything. So that is definitely the wine, the food, and the lifestyle here is just amazing.
Great. And Pete, then, what's your one reason?
I would agree with Elmarie. That is the lifestyle. I would say the heritage. The heritage, I'm very interested in the history, so you know that is very important. But what has the heritage, the history of Salmon contributed to this very beautiful area? Now this lockdown has forced us into the mountains now virtually every morning, to be able to see this incredible village from higher up in the mountain down to all the activities, and one of the major reasons for that. So you know the lifestyle, as Elmarie said, certainly combined with the heritage, the history of the whole place, and then the nature, and then we've got something else. People ask me how many people are living there in Stellenbosch. And my answer is normally 80,000 people and 30,000 students. And the students contribute so much to the lifestyle, which Elmarie referred to as well. The university is an extremely important factor in the whole build-up of Stellenbosch.
Thank you. And Lauren?
Elmarie has mentioned this, the only wine department at the university on the continent of Africa.
Absolutely.
And they produce the BSc students of course, and that helps us tremendously. All the research, the soil research, the microclimates, and everything is done by this wine department.
Fantastic. Thank you for that, Peter. So Lauren?
Yeah.
Other than coming to see you.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with everyone. The lifestyle is incredible. I've been living in the winelands now only for 5 years, and I did not realize before how incredible it actually is. It's completely stolen my heart, and if I'm coming from Cape Town and I see the Simmonsburg Mountains, I just feel peaceful, and I'm so happy to get back home. The culture and the history in Stellenbosch is incredible, and you can feel it. It has soul. What I've thought the first time I went to Landrack before I was working there is the energy there is just so tranquil and beautiful, and it's so alive, which you can feel. I'm sure it's the people, but I think it's the energy in the land as well. And yeah, there's just so much to do. I think there's over 200 restaurants, 200 wine estates just in Stellenbosch alone. And the art is incredible. The boutique stores are amazing. And yeah, the students definitely bring a sense of youth and vibrancy within the town. So yeah, plenty of reasons.
So
you mentioned art now. That is extremely important, which I left out. You know, there are 24 art galleries now, apart from private collections. But out on farms, it's a very popular thing. Art is it's the art capital of South Africa.
Absolutely. And I always tell my folks, when you're down there, don't just go for the wine routes, also go for the art routes as well, and go see all that. But we're unfortunately out of time. We could have done this for another 2 hours. You guys already have wine, I don't, so that's the only unfortunate portion here. But I want to thank each of you. Anne-Marie, Pietman, Lauren, thank you so much for joining us today on Index and on Live with Index. And this recording, this video is recorded, so this will be on our Live with Index page. For anyone who has any questions for any of our 3 guests, please make sure to email me or my team, Danielle and Tyler, and we'll be happy to answer any of those questions for you. And of course, once things open back up, I'm sure we'll be sending quite a few people your way. So we look forward to seeing you soon in the Cape. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye-bye. See you soon.